All right, today we're jumping into a really bizarre story from Cape Town. I'm talking about a ghost story, but one with a twist that just breaks all the rules you think you know. We've got nearly 24 witnesses, so something was definitely going on. Let's get into it.
So this whole thing really boils down to one kind of mind-bending question. I mean, it sounds completely impossible, right? But what happened in this little house on Exton Road? Well, it points to an answer that is way, way stranger than fiction. Okay, so our story kicks off with a widow, Mrs. Smuts, living in this small home in Cape Town. And she starts to believe that she's not alone in the house, that there's some kind of disruptive spirit there. You know, these little disturbances started happening every single day, and pretty soon it wasn't just her saying it, her friends and neighbors started backing her up.
At first, it was small stuff. You know, the kind of thing you might second guess. Clothes would just be scattered all over a room. Objects would get moved around. Weird, unsettling for sure, but maybe you could explain it away. At least, that's what they thought at first.
And this is where things get really interesting, because our first major witness comes onto the scene. Her name was Mrs. Strong, a neighbor, and she heard all these stories and was just not buying it, not one bit. She was totally convinced there was a simple, logical reason for everything, and she was going to be the one to figure it out.
So Mrs. Strong, our skeptic, she marches right into the bedroom where all the stuff was supposedly happening. She tidies everything up, makes it all perfect, and just moments after she walks out, she hears this huge commotion. She goes back in, and the room is an absolute mess. But the weird part, it was specific. Like the bedding was all bundled up and just thrown aside, and a pillowcase had been torn up, really violently.
But she's still not convinced. I mean, she is determined to debunk this. So she decides, okay, let's do a proper experiment. She cleans up the room all over again, but this time she locks the door from the outside. Then she goes around to the windows so she can watch what happens. No one in, no one out. The perfect setup. And what she sees next, it just breaks your brain. Right there in front of her, the bedding starts to shake, like really violently. Then it kind of bunches itself up, lifts into the air towards the ceiling, and just drops back down on the bed. And then, and this is the craziest part, the pillowcase just gets ripped to shreds, like invisible hands are tearing it apart. The room was totally empty, but man, was there something happening in there. And look, this wasn't just something a couple of people saw. The activity was getting more and more intense. At one point, there were 20 people in the house, and they all saw the same thing. A teapot just lifted off a shelf by itself, hung in the air for a second, and then smashed onto the floor. 20 witnesses.
So things are already pretty wild, right? Well, the whole situation was about to level up. This invisible troublemaker, it wasn't going to stay invisible for long. It wasn't enough to just move things around anymore. Now it was going to show itself.
And that's exactly what happened. All of a sudden, different people start seeing the same thing. You had Dempster Strong, for instance. He sees this European woman standing in a doorway right after the daughter Gertrude screams, "Ghost!" He can't make out her face, and poof, she's gone the second he moves. Then you have another guy, Mr. Van Renswad. He investigates a noise and sees a woman with white hair in a white dress. The figure's pretty clear until he tries to get closer, and she vanishes. Two different people, but it sounds like they saw the exact same ghost, right? But hold on, because the biggest bombshell of the whole story comes from a close family friend named Mr. Bejarath. What he saw is going to flip this entire thing upside down. Seriously, nobody could have predicted this.
So picture this. It's chaos in the house. Mr. Bejarath is there, and suddenly he hears his sister scream bloody murder from one of the bedrooms. He sprints in there, and she's just frantically pointing at the window.
She's yelling, "There is the ghost!" In Hindi, it's "Vol hai bhoot," just like you see here. So Mr. Bejarath whips his head around to look at the window, and sure enough, there she is. That shimmering figure of a woman that everyone had been talking about. But here's the thing. Unlike everyone else, Mr. Bejarath got a clear look at her. And this is the moment everything changes. Because as he later said, the most surprising thing was that he knew who she was. And she was still alive.
A living ghost. I mean, what does that even mean? It sounds completely insane, right? But this shocking ID, it actually gave them a wild new theory that started to make all the weirdness make sense. So who was she?
Okay, get this. The ghost, the apparition, was a relative of the family, a woman who had fallen on really hard times. Now here's the drama. She and the family had a big falling out, and she'd actually put a curse on them.
But even after all that, Mrs. Smuts took her in. And when they look back, they realized all this paranormal stuff, it didn't start until after she moved in.
And this timeline here, it really lays it all out. You've got the relative who curses the family, then moves in. Boom, the weird events kick off. But the final piece of the puzzle is the craziest part. Sometime later, the very last things this relative owned were sold. And the second that happened, everything stopped. The activity in the house just vanished. Completely. And it never, ever came back.
So, what are we supposed to make of a story like that? Was this some kind of powerful, angry spirit being projected by a living person who held a serious grudge? Or was it all just a crazy string of coincidences, maybe a little bit of mass hysteria mixed in? It's a heck of a story, and the evidence really just leaves you wondering.